win up a check, I might do it again. Enemies close, have me thinking they're friends. 10 toes down, I'll be free until the end. Crib outside the city, I don't feel safe in my hands. Took so many years, I'm just waiting for the wins. I'm in debt to no one but the one who took my sins. I do it for real, there's no reason to pretend. If I do it once, I do it again.
Good YouTube family, it's your boy SCraftBlendz back again with another barber tutorial, and today we are hooking up the man himself, Bossio, and we're gonna go ahead and hook him up with that famous high taper that he likes on the side with that mid to low taper in the back. Some people say, why do you do it like that? Why don't you take the taper higher in the back? Because it's how we get down, man. It's how we like it. So anyways, he's not taking anything off the top or the sides. We're just going to go ahead and hit him up with that taper. I've already done one side, but I wanted to record the back for you guys, and then the other side as well. So we started with the Babyless trimmers, setting our first initial guideline and balding it out on the bottom. We went in and created the second guideline with no guard, just an open blade. And then I'm closing the blade halfway, dropping a little bit lower than that second guideline, blending into it, and then closing the blade all the way to tap out that bottom line that we created with the first initial guideline. So now we're coming in to create our next guideline using a 0 purple magnetic guard with the Wall Seniors with the Andis Master Blade modification on it. And there again, we're creating that next guideline. And what I'll do is just close that once we've kind of cleaned this area out, got a good clean panel going. Then I'll drop down, tapping at that line, trying to blend those two panels together. So some of you may not know, but whenever I am fading without the guard, I usually have the blade open, halfway closed, and then fully closed. But when I'm using guards, I usually just do open and closed when it comes to the blade lever. Fully open, fully closed. So now that we did that, I'm going to go ahead and skip the number 1 guard, and I'm going to jump right into the 1.5 purple magnetic guard. And we're going to kind of stretch this out, taking this panel about, 3/4 of an inch to an inch high. And, we're trying to keep it dark because he's growing the sides out. So I figured I'll skip the number 1, kind of go in and do that 1.5 fully open, and then we'll close that 1.5, tapping at that line. I'll come back a little bit later with the number 1 and kind of tie that together a little bit better. But as for now, we just skipped the number 1, went straight to the 1.5 guard. Now to knock down some of that bulk, I went ahead and jumped into the number 2 guard, and it's fully open, and I'm just kind of flicking at that bulk just to take some of that weight off of there to help this transition a little bit better. And I'll make my way through that whole area, just tapping, scooping, trying to tie the blend into the longer hair. All right, now that we did that, I went ahead and put my number 1 purple magnetic guard on there. And now I am just, trying to flick at that darker spot to kind of tie that blend together, taking out some of that bulk and some of that weight that is, that was between that 0 and 1.5 guard. I just want to give a shout out to my boy Bossio, man. Number 1, it's a blessing being his barber. It's a blessing working next to him in the shop. Just to see how he operates and how he moves in life and business with his family. It's a real blessing, and it's an honor to call him friend. So it's always a blessing to be able to cut his hair and just kind of spend time with him. Also to record it. I enjoy recording his haircut for you guys. Probably dropped his video at least 2 or 3 times on my channel, and people really enjoy watching Chris get a haircut. So I figured, I'd go ahead and I'll record it again, and maybe we can get some views on this video. But he is switching up the cut. He's going to let the top go out again. He wants to let it get long, and then he's letting the sides grow out as well. So I don't know, when he's going to cut the sides, how short he's going to cut it, or if he's just letting it all grow out. He just said he wanted to let it grow for a little while, and we'd go ahead and, just do the taper on there. So we pretty much started blending that in, trying to get a nice transition from light to dark. We want it to be tight at the bottom, but then, really get into that dark, more of a blowout look. And I put the zero magnetic guard back on, just really trying to tie this thing all together. And I'll open and close the blade as needed. I'll also come in with, my blending shears, and I'll try to, thin out some of that weight as well, and just kind of blend it together a little bit better. Bossio has really challenging hair to cut anyways, so I just try to knock out the foundation. Then I spend a while trying to polish it, man, getting it look right. If anybody's gonna get hooked up, I gotta try my best to hook this man up. So anyways, this is what we did on the other side. I'm just gonna show you what we did on the other side, and obviously what you do to one side, you do to another. Just like all the high tapers I do, I set my first guideline, balled it out, and then I go up about 1/2 inch with the open blade, no guard, and then I close it halfway, dropping down, and then I close it all the way, tapping at that line. We're gonna go ahead and keep the beard kind of full, but we're blending that into the bald area. And I do the same thing, just instead of, fading, like I'm fading the taper area, I just go ahead and blend in the opposite direction. So usually when I have a guard on, I'll use that same guard on the beard to save time. If I don't have a guard on, then I'll go ahead and do that same thing on the beard as well, just in reverse. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and jump into the zero guard, going up about another 1/2 inch. And I'm kind of flicking out, being, we're blending into that length. Now, we've never done a real high taper on Bossio with this much hair on the side. So it is kind of unique. It's a little different than what we usually do. So, trying to get that same height on the high taper that we usually do, but also keep that fullness on the side, it is a little challenging, but we're just creating as we go. So now I went ahead and skipped the number 1 again, went right into the 1.5 guard, and I did it open and then did it closed. And I'll come back in with the number 1 and just tie those all together. But before I do that, I'm gonna jump into the number 3. And I went with the number 3. I skipped the number 2. I went with the number 3 because I know that that's just a good guard, I think, to knock out some of this bulk. And I won't knock out all of it. And I'm trying to be careful to take off too much. So there's going to be a little bit of weight in there, but I'll come back in with my blending shear or shear over comb to really tie, those dark spots together, just to knock out some of those dark spots, that weight. And now I'm jumping into the number 2 to tie those together. And then I went back to the number 1. So there's times that I will just skip guards, but usually I'll come back and I'll use the guards that I skipped. Why I do it like that, I don't always know. Sometimes I try it and I realize I don't need to use the guard that I skipped. And then sometimes I'll come back in, and I do it oftentimes whenever I'm, kind of blending into a longer hair, just because I want to make sure that we're getting a good, light to dark transition without stretching it too far. So now I'm going to go ahead and use my Gamma Ergos to do some detailing. And I'm using in that, low area between the bald and the open blade, I'm actually using the zero guard, the zero wall guard on, or the half guard on that clipper. and just kind of tapping at some of those darker spots. And like I said, I'll come in with shear over comb and blending shear over comb and knock out some of that bulk, just trying to really establish kind of where I'm at in this haircut, and then come back and polish it up a little bit later. All right, still see some spots that aren't tying in as well. Because I've cut his hair so long, I can tell you, man, that his hair is challenging to cut. It's as you can see between the hair, it's like you see these lines and kind of patches where it's dark and it's just light, and it kind of looks like scratches going through. You have to work through that with the corner of your blades and guards to kind of take those dark spots and lighten them up to the same, you know, like density, let's say, as the hairs that are in the thinner portions of those scratches, if that makes sense. So once again, we're just trying to get all the length right in that taper area, and then I'll come back in, you know, with the shears and the blending shears, and just, you know, really soften up some of that hard area. Now over the ear, I do this all the time unless people are growing hair over their ear. But if we're going to do any kind of blend or cut on their hair, it doesn't matter how long it is. I like to do this little trimmer over comb technique and just kind of lift the hair along the edge there, and I'll pull my comb, the teeth of my comb out towards me with the base of the comb, you know, closer to the head, and I just kind of trim up those hairs so I can create a good line. Now I did spray some hairspray on there and comb those longer hairs down so I can get a sharper line up, and as you can see, that hairspray really holds those hairs into place, and it's easier to go ahead and create a nice crispy lineup. So now we're just cleaning up over the ears, and we're going to tie, you know, that curve over the ear into that back line. Once again, we're just laying a foundation. Like all the haircuts I do, I just try to lay a good foundation where I know all the hair is pretty much where I want it, and then I come back in with my shear over comb and do more detail work or thinning shear over comb. So right now we're just going to keep working on that bulk area, knocking out, you know, that big heavy dark spot that we see there. I just didn't want to cut into it too deep with the clipper. I wanted to make sure that I still had a little weight that I could just blend with the shear over comb, because we don't want to take it back too far. And there again, this is the first time ever blending a high taper on him into this much hair, so I wanted to still give him that high taper that he likes, but try to, you know, figure out how to transition that into the weight on the head. And like I said, we'll get it there, but it's going to take me a little bit of time to just work with those shears. When I do detail work with my shear over comb, usually I just use the tips of my shears to get in there, and right now, like I was talking about those scratches where it looks real light in between the dark areas, I'm just trying to use the tips of my blade to go up against those dark areas to kind of soften them up so that they look like they transition more with those lighter areas, if that makes sense. Hopefully it makes sense. So as you can see, it looks like I'm using the full comb, but even though I'm lifting up a lot of hair, I'm using the tips just to kind of hit those darker areas that I see to lighten them up. And as you can see, it's starting to come together. We're hitting those darker lines, so we're softening them up to match those lighter lines, or what I said look like scratches. And now it's starting to come together. Obviously, there's still a big, heavy, bulky spot over there that I'll work on, and I come back to that, but you get the gist of it. He wanted his lineup shorter than what I did it previously. I already lined him up, and he said, you know what, just go ahead and make it higher. So I was like, all right, we can do that, brother. however you want it, man. So we're making the front lineup really short and trying to keep it as full as possible. And then the top will grow long. So he'll, even as the top grows long and curly, the front portion, we'll just keep pulling it down and cutting it like we're doing right now. So it stays clean and straight up front, but it'll have the longer texture and curly hair on top as it grows. All right, so now I'm coming in on the beard and on the haircut with the Sean Cuts hair color card, throwing a little color enhancement. And we never did this before, but I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it. We're gonna go get beamed on Bossio today. So we put a little magic pencil on there, the white being his skin is so light, and we come in and just kind of rub that out with the trimmers, and then I'll come back in with my razor just to sharpen it up, make that line pop a little bit more, so that it looks a little crispier. And we got a little bit of the white pencil on his beard, but that's all right. We were having fun with it, and I thought it would be a cool idea for the video. What does this do? Not a whole lot. It does make that line look like it pops a whole lot more, and it's just like concealer on eyebrows, man. It just makes them look like they pop out a lot more, And there's the finished cut, guys. I hope you like it.
I appreciate you, man. Let go, man. Let go.
I appreciate that, Bossio. Hey, if you guys aren't following me on Instagram, you can follow me at S.Craft_blends. Also, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you have not done it yet, man, hit that subscribe button. God bless you guys. Until next time, peace.